Welcome back, guys, to Sharpen Your Sword podcast, episode 43. Guys, this is the one I've been waiting for a long time. Been trying to get this busy guy on here for a few weeks now, okay? So, like always, we are here with the number one co-host in the world, Giovanni Jimenez.
Hey.
What up, Gio? And we have our special guest, a good friend of mine's, a black belt human being, guys, a black belt entrepreneur, and maybe one day a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but we met through jiu-jitsu, okay? And I want to welcome my good friend, the guy that helps me out a lot and is always giving me good tips, Alan Phelps.
Thanks, Coach.
Welcome, Mr. Alan.
Welcome to the show, Alan. We always talk about sharpening your sword. Now it's time to give these guys what they want to hear. And so I want to start with, and I'm going to let you bring it up and let you say the stories. How did we meet? I've heard your name before you came in through the Ennis brothers, okay? But I want you to talk about how you came in and how your jiu-jitsu journey is going and your thoughts on jiu-jitsu and your journey so far.
So I got a text message from Coach Mo, and he said, hey, I heard a little bit about you. I'd love for you to come in and just try out a class and see how you like it, and that the Ennises had told you about me. So my first reaction was that, hey, Coach, I'm fat, I'm overweight, and way out of shape to try to do something, but I appreciate it, and I don't want to get beat up by Nathan and John. And you said, well, if you ever change your mind, let me know. And the next day, I had a guy come in my office, and he says, you know what? I think I'm going to go and start taking jiu-jitsu classes. And I said, what did you just say to me? And he says, jiu-jitsu, he says, I took it before. I'm a 4-stripe white belt, and I really enjoyed it. And I said, well, I had a coach yesterday that reached out to me and asked me to come, try out the class. He said, you know what? You'd love it. So I reached back out to Coach, and he said, come anytime. And the first class, I stood him up. and then the second class, I came on in. And when I walked in, you said, man, I'm glad you made it. And I said, you got to get yourself out of your comfort zone. Nothing good happens to you when you're in your comfort zone. And, I preach it, but sometimes you got to live it too. You can't just preach it. And I'm glad that I came. It's been a good journey. That was in September. And I thought I knew how to fight. I've been a sheriff's deputy for 20 years. Been in my fair share of handcuffing altercations, we'll call it, and that you're humbled by the fact of how somebody bigger, smaller, younger, older can have their way with you on the mat. So I appreciate the environment to be able to come in and enjoy the art.
Yes, sir. And I'm excited and I'm blessed, honestly, to see you come this far, right? Like, a lot of people are like, well, Coach, thank you, right? And I'm like, in this situation, I'm like, thank you, right? Because I didn't know, and this is the thing, is in the comfort zone, you just don't know what's going to happen. But once you get out of it, you still don't know what's going to happen, but at least you have a chance of something good happening, right? And I remember, because the truth is, I've never told you this, I was dabbing it up with Gio. I'm like, Gio, you see what reaching out to people does? I'm like going in. Because he was like, man, he's like, Mo, because I have to lead from the front at the end of the day. I can't just tell them to do something I'm not willing to do. So me reaching out to you, like just cold call, right? Just send a random message to this dude on Instagram that I don't know. And then you come in and you pay for a year. And I'm like, Gio, this is what I'm talking about. This is what you do, right? But for me, the truth is, money has nothing to do with our relationship. Like, I am running a business, and that's part of business. But at this point, I don't care about the money, right? For me, a good relationship is the number one thing. And when we have phone calls, I have phone calls with you about positive things and things that you're telling me, hey, this is going to be good for your business. And like I said, you're a black belt entrepreneur. You're a black belt businessman. At the end of the day, that's what it is. You can be humble and change and do whatever you want, but you are, right? And so when that happens to me, like, I shut up and I listen, right? It's not the young guy that's calling me and saying, Mo, let's go party. Mo, let's go hit on some girls. Let's go catch some girls, right? It's none of that. And I don't want none of that. This is what I want. So I am thankful and grateful for this, And it's crazy how it's something small, right? It's really not small because who's willing to cold call or cold text, right? Nobody really is really doing it much anymore. Mm-hmm. But absolutely. The first impression was I got there and I get there early, right? I got there maybe 5:05 that day. I don't know, 5:05, 5:15. And when I pulled up, I see a truck and I'm like, it got to be him. That's what I told myself. It got to be him. And by the time I walked in, you know, because it's 5 o'clock and nobody's in the mall. It's just me, right? Every morning, It's just me. I'm like, I'm not going to approach this truck, you know, but I left the door open. I don't leave that door open.
Like, I realize that now.
You know, I left the door open. I'm like, let me see if he walks through the door because I always lock that door. And so I walked in. I did my routine and walk in, flipped the lights, hit the cameras, look at the cameras. He walks in. Like, this is him, you know? And I walked in and I walked out and I said, you made it, you know? And he said, nothing happens in the comfort zone. And I was like, this is already like the radio waves are going to our brains, you know what I'm saying? And then we just hit it off, boom, you know? And so simple things can turn into big things, you know? And so I'm super grateful for that and happy to see you on the jiu-jitsu journey. You know, I'm obsessed with jiu-jitsu and I'm happy to see someone else join that path and to see how far you transformed in the last 6 months now, you know, is amazing, and it wouldn't happen in the comfort zone.
That's it. You know, the one thing that's funny about the comfort zone is that if you go outside the comfort zone, you can always go back.
Yeah.
You know, and people call it quitting or whatever the case might be, but you have to put yourself out there to quit something. You know what I mean? The people who are really, you know, having the disadvantage at life for whatever experience it is, they're not trying it. It's not that they're quitting it. They're not even trying it. You know, I didn't know anything about jiu-jitsu when I first started. I came in cold turkey. Didn't watch a YouTube video on it or anything. And when I came in there, it was a big surprise for me. You know, but you know, in your business, you have a very unique business because these folks that I talk to, they're you know, they're getting something out of it. What I get is, and I've heard this from 2 or 3 other folks too, you don't think about work. You don't think about the things that are nagging you all day. I get in the shower, think about work. I get in the bed and think about work. You don't think about it when you're rolling around on the mat. You know what I mean? You know, for me, it was also about a health thing. You know, I have a statement that I make, and one of the first classes I got, I tapped out the pressure, you know, and they say that you don't get a blue belt at Borders tapping out the pressure. And I tell you that I don't want a blue belt. I just want a what?
Smaller belt.
That's it. I'm just looking for a smaller belt. And so, you know, for me, I think that you reaching out to folks, there's only one reaction, and that's going to be to help people out. You know, if they say no, they say no. But if they say yes, I truly think that in whatever fashion this might be, if it's they're trying to get their health better, if they're trying to get away with a problem that they had, they're trying to fight through the difficulties of life. You know, there's a person in there. Every person in there has their different story, and they find jiu-jitsu to be, you know, their avenue to make it through this. And I would say that you find a lot of high performers in this, because somebody who goes into something that they suck at, they're going to get beat up every day and keep coming back to this thing. I mean, that says high performer already, right? You can't be somebody who's likes the easy street and go get beat up every day and still show up to class the next morning.
Right.
You know.
Right.
So,
where do you see from the 6 months of jiu-jitsu, where do you see your mindset, right? Because you already had the get out of the comfort zone mindset, right? And we all think we're tough, right? I always said that when I first started the podcast. I told people, like, I was 18, chiseled, muscular, full of piss and testosterone. You know what I'm saying? At 18 years old, I'm ready to run through a wall, and I did Muay Thai kickboxing. So I already thought I was the man, right? Until my professor, 40 years old at the time, gray-headed, 5'6", throws me down, and I tapped the pressure. You know, and I realized I wasn't that tough. Yeah. You know, winning street fights, and I'm the guy that fight in the street, and if you're going to talk about me, we're going to fight, and so forth. And then a 40-year-old man throws me down, you know, and then I realized, like, man, maybe my mindset is not as strong as I thought. Maybe I'm not physically as strong. You know what I'm saying? Maybe my capacity is not as big. So where do you see yourself now that you are way out of the comfort zone? You know, and you tell me when you come in, You good, Mr. Allen? You're the first one there usually, right? 5:30.
Second one, I have this one guy that keeps beating me, opening the doors. That's you.
You know, outside of me, you're the first one there. And sometimes you're like, man, I almost lost the battle to my pillow or to my bed, but I'm here.
Yeah.
So it's always a battle, and that's what the thing that people don't understand is life is always going to be a battle. Doesn't matter how sharp you are, you're always going to fight that battle. But it's your choice to decide: do I win or do I lose the battle? You know?
I think you have to figure out what's the excuse to show up. Everybody has an excuse to stay in bed, but what's the excuse to show up? And I think that you do a good job of that. You know, the culture that's at your gym is that of camaraderie is one of the terms I would use. Is they have great camaraderie, you know, and if you go long enough, they'll know your name. You know, everybody's fist bumping everybody. Hey, good job, helping you up off the mat, even though they just got done choking you. You know, and that's exactly what you're looking for. You know, it's kind of the old tough love back when I was young. You know, and I enjoy that. I enjoy the camaraderie. I enjoy the sitting down on the mat and talking. I know my wife probably doesn't. She thinks that, like, hey, why aren't you home? But she's supportive of my journey too, and understands that there's a process, and in mine it's still weight based. I'm still trying to, get physically fit, so I always say that it's so I can spend quality time with my grandkids. My kids I have a 23 and a 13-year-old. And I feel that I'm going to be physically fit enough to play with them until they don't want to play with me anymore.
Right.
But I don't think that with my grandkids when I came in. And I feel like you're helping me on my journey to play with my grandkids, which creates a bigger cause than a blue belt or a purple belt or a national championship in my eyes. And so it's all about what your goals are, and those are pretty significant goals for somebody like me that's very family based. And
I agree with you, and I think that's a very big thing that you just brought up, right? Because you're not thinking now in the moment, right? You're also thinking your grandkids, right? And last week I asked this question, and I correlate jiu-jitsu, obviously I've been doing it a long time, with my life, right? Sure. I believe one of the closest things you can do to get to life is jiu-jitsu, right? It's a battle in the moment. Life is a battle in the moment. Sure. Bills, responsibilities, all these things, and you choose to keep going or to quit, to stop or to try to get out of the submission. Do you get out of the financial hole that you're in? Whatever it is, they can correlate. That's the beauty of it. And I asked the question is like, who wants to be a black belt? I said, the key word is want. And the whole class raised their hand. And I said, okay, who will become a black belt? And in my second class, I clarified this. And some hands go down. And I told them, I said, the stat is, and this is something I'm trying to change, is maybe one of you out of the 40, maybe one will make it to black belt. This is just proven facts and stats, okay? And in life, when you talk about dreams, it's the same way. Okay, it's not just a goal. This is a dream, because the goal is 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. You know what I'm saying? But what you're playing with your grandkids, it's a dream also at the same time.
That's it.
That's a black belt mentality. So your black belt, when I talked to the class last week, I said your black belt may not be the jiu-jitsu black belt. It doesn't have to be the jiu-jitsu black belt. Okay, I don't care if you're a jiu-jitsu black belt. Of course, I would love to put a black belt on you one day. You know what I mean? And I hope I do put that on you one day, because I believe it's going to change your life forever and the generations after you forever. But you're choosing to be a black belt grandpa, and you don't even have the grandkids yet.
That's it.
Yeah. And so you're working toward that from now. And I think this is the unique thing. This is why I think I like talking to you. Like, you always call me like, hey, you busy? If I am, I'm lying to you. I'm like, no, I'm not busy, because I know I'm going to hear something good. Yeah. And if I am down, because everybody gets down, and lately, you called me a few times, and honestly, I'm fighting myself in my sleep and all this over work. I'm stressed and I'm dying. I told Gio about this. You call me, and I'm like, my mood changes. Boom. Now it's like the fire was coming down today. Now the fire is roaring again. Sure. Okay? But it's because of that mindset is I'm preparing to play with my grandkids. That's a black belt. It doesn't have to be a jiu-jitsu black belt. That's a black belt as a grandpa.
Sure.
And I think people need to recognize this. What is your black belt? We talked about this earlier today again. is what is your black belt? It doesn't have to be the jiu-jitsu black belt.
Sure.
You know?
I think that another piece of your puzzle was, as you said, raise your hand if you want to be a black belt. And they raised their hand. And then you said what? Raise your hand higher.
Yeah.
Right?
Be confident.
So why did you only halfway want to be a black belt at first? You know, why weren't you all the way in? And that's a lot of the problem that we have is that we're kind of part of the way in, you know? And in life, we don't push. But if you'd asked me anyway, who wants to use jiu-jitsu or get their health better to go play with their grandkids, bam, that hand goes slap. You know, it's up high now, right? And I think that even with a goal in mind, like playing with your grandkids, there are other goals that get checked off the list too. So I'm more physically fit now. I'm able to, feel better following a client up the stairs and then talking to them all the way up it. Once I started doing this, I realized that my fitness had gotten to a point where it shouldn't have been. Now I was at the sheriff's office. We went and we ran a gun, working all kinds of different scenarios, chasing people through apartment complexes and everything of that nature. But those times change. You get into a more lackadaisical unit and you sit around and go to lunch and this, that, and the other, and you see your health. You don't see your health going down like it is. You still feel like you're that 25-year-old Alan that is able to run 15 miles. And so I think that some of the pieces that that's not on our goal sheet are getting fulfilled by just following along. The other piece is, just for folks who haven't experienced jiu-jitsu, I started going to the gym as well, and I have this fitness tracker that I wear all the time. And at the gym, I spend an hour and a half at the gym, about the same amount of time I spend at your gym, and I'd burn 350, 370 calories. Well, you did this thing called competition prep, which don't start during competition prep, I might tell the audience. And we were doing 1,200 calories in an hour and a half. That's how many calories I was burning. And saw the weight just shred off, And now my diet's been good, not great. I haven't been, 100%. But I'm able to enjoy my life now, where if I had 300 calories every time I was burning, I'd have to be, fish and rice, to be able to get the same outcome. So it's been a better quality of life because I'm able to climb stairs and do what I do. And so I think that what you do is very unique in the fact that you can help people like you can.
Mm-hmm. Powerful. What would you say was your impression of jiu-jitsu before you did it and now that you're 6 months in?
So my impression of jiu-jitsu before was nothing because I didn't even watch a YouTube video on it. So after I started jiu-jitsu, the first week, we'll call it, you're sore. I'm just going to be honest, okay? And you're like, oh my gosh, you're sitting in the shower trying to get the hot water on your back or whatever's injured. But after you start getting past that point, for me, it's been more empowering than it is anything else. It's not so much the mat time as it is the release from whatever's going on in your life, And so you get to spend time with these other people that are like-minded. They're trying to make themselves better in one way or another, whatever it might be. And then you create friendships that you wouldn't create if you just went to Lifetime or ATC or something like that and we're running on a treadmill. You're like, hey, man, what are you doing? It's like, I'm not talking to you is what I'm doing. Leave me alone. I'm trying to run on a treadmill. And so, while you're doing your drills and stuff that you guys do with us, it's time where you can have that camaraderie piece that comes in. And it's not the ego-infested grunge gym that I guess I would have maybe thought of like the only thing you would maybe relate it to would be like UFC or MMA or something like that. That's not the case. It's more of a it's a pleasure feel, I guess. It's good. I mean, really it is.
That's good. Do you think that your mindset, and it's maybe not necessarily your mindset, but maybe your actions toward better health would it still be the same if it wasn't for jiu-jitsu? Like, do you think you would have still been on this journey to the point that you are now? Like, hey, let me get better, you know, and pushing it. Do you think you would have been able to turn it around as fast without jiu-jitsu?
I think that Brian was the guy's name that said he was going to go to the jiu-jitsu class. I was asking Brian to go to lunch, right? I said, hey, you want to go to lunch? Nah, man, I bring my lunch. I said, okay, well, I'll ask him to go to lunch tomorrow. I went to lunch. Came back the next day. I said, hey, you want to go to lunch? And he says, no, I'm bringing my lunch. Every day, I'm bringing my lunch. And so I went to Whole Foods, and I picked up a boxed lunch. And that's when I said, look, I'm going to get some good food in me, and I guess I'll try this jiu-jitsu thing out. And you were already hounding me by that time. No offense, Coach, but to come in, which is great.
It's what we do.
It's exactly what I needed. And I feel that, you know, the Lord gives you little blessings, and that was one that He gave me. It was, hey, get off the couch, stop eating Cheetos, as Coach would say, and better yourself. You know, it's easy to stay in your comfort zone. That's why everybody does it, right? Mm-hmm. And it's easy to make excuses why, well, I don't want to miss my show that I have taped, you know, and I don't want to get up this early and things like that. So surround yourself with other people that are trying to better themselves, and I'll almost promise you that you're gonna better yourself eventually. Mm-hmm. If you surround yourself with people that are, you know, not trying to better themselves, vice versa.
Right.
That's awesome. That's a cool story about jiu-jitsu, right? And 6 months in, is it a lot for you? I can't imagine decades from now what it'll do for you, you know? It's done a lot for me over 6 years. But let's talk more about you, Mr. Allen. And let's talk about your history in school and as a quote-unquote bad student.
Yeah, so in the second grade, I had a teacher tell my mom and my dad that I was going to be a dependent for the rest of my life. I had a thing called ADD. Nobody knew anything about it. And I was put into the resource classes, okay? In these resource classes, you get extra time to do your tests and things like that. You get some extra special tutors to try to help you learn in different facets or whatever. And so throughout this, for me, it was through hardships, right? I think that the bad times make people better. It's not the good times. Good times are great, right? But it's through your losses. It's through you going to pans and losing that's going to make you better. Nobody ever won pans is like, hey, you know what? Next year I'm going to do a little better. They're like, oh, I'm on top, you know? And so I find that to be kind of one of the pieces that defined me. Throughout high school, you know, I was I'm going to tell my son that I did straight A's because that's what I expect from him, but I didn't. And I made, you know, decent grades, but I didn't make great grades. And I was going to be, I was in shop, and I sang in high school. And I got a full ride to Ole Miss to go sing as a bass. And my dad said, you know, if you want to go to school, you don't need a singing scholarship, because I had a study music. Mm-hmm. And so he didn't make that have to be my destiny to be able to go to school. He says, you know, we can take care of your school. And I had this one lady, her name's Carol Leach, and she was one of my tutors that I got throughout this resource thing that tutored me after school, some math and stuff like that. And Carol said, you know what, Alan, I think you're a college-bound student. I said, look, the only person that's ever told me that is my mom and my dad, and they get paid to do that. That's what's part of you're beautiful. You're
part of that's part of the job.
Yeah, that's part of the job. Yeah, check off here. You got to tell your kid he's smart. And so Carol said, hey, you're a college-bound student. And I said, Miss Leach, I said, I don't think that you're right. No, I think you are. She's like, you're one of the few ones that I think can go to college. So I went to college, and I get there, and I'm in this class, and they said, hey, by the way, you got ADD. I don't know if you know that or not. I'll figure that out in the second grade. But we're going to give you extra time to do your tests. I said, no. That's not how this is going to work. I'm not going to take any extra time to do these tests, because the whole time I've rode this system of extra time to make it. Mm-hmm. Right? And in the real world, they're not giving you extra time to turn in the proposal, right, or extra time to, you know, do this project or whatever. You have to have the project done just like everybody else. Either I'm going to fail or I'm going to make it, but I'm going to make it on my own. No more Miss Leach's tutoring me after school. It's going to be read the book, try to make it or not. And so It took me a little extra time. It took me 5.5 years to get a 4-year degree. I'm not a doctor, but it took me about that same amount of time. And, I got a degree in basically criminal justice and communications from the University of Memphis. And, when I walked across that stage, I knew I did it by myself, And when I walked across the stage at Germantown High School, I'm a prodigy of our public school system, I didn't feel that way. I felt like, well, I kind of got drug along, you know what I mean? Because I had all these extras that maybe were given to me that helped me along the process. So through that, gave me the confidence, hey, I can make it. And in the meantime, my dad and mom were big on getting jobs. So I started working for our family business at young age, 15 years old, and started washing trucks. I went up there and started washing trucks for some extra times. I had this guy named Rick that was my boss, so I didn't work for mom and dad. I worked for our operations manager. And Rick was a master chief in the Navy. No nonsense, hey, this is what it is. That's how it was, And it's exactly what I needed. And by the time I got out of college, I ended up having 5 jobs. I sold flowers on the weekends because this girl I knew from college worked at the flower shop, and she said, hey, why don't you come sell flowers? And so the first weekend I was there, I sold more flowers than anybody else in the whole place. And it was all about listening to your customer. And I knew nothing about the flower shop. I didn't know where the flowers were, right? But I knew a couple of things I could ask her that would help me go through the process of learning what was about. So are you going to put these flowers in full sun or in a shady area? Now, just so you know how a flower shop's set up, they put the bushes that are full sun bushes in the full sun. Mm-hmm. And then they put the ones that need shade in a house, okay? So you go to the greenhouses to get the shady plants. You go to the full sun to get the full sun plants, and that's how I broke down this puzzle, But everybody else is trying to sell her the most expensive thing, and I just walked her through the process and showed her, hey, here's what's in this greenhouse. Let's walk to the next one. And I explained to her, hey, this is my first day. And really, I think that that's one of the places that I became in love with the selling process and how to help people out with the selling process. And another one of my jobs was a place called Roost Chris Steakhouse. So I didn't realize this for many years after I even quit, but I went for an interview, and when I got there, this guy named David Glover. David sat down, he took his coat off, shirt and tie guy, took his coat off, and I'm wearing, I don't know, a polo shirt, a pair of blue jeans or something like that, and this is a fine dining restaurant, and David says, asked me a bunch of questions and this, that, and the other, and says, look, we'll give you a call if we have something come open that we need you for. I said, okay, I appreciate it, but I got a couple of questions for you if you don't mind. And he says, well, look, he's already standing up. So he sits back down with his coat on and says, well, what's the question you have? And I said, well, if we have a problem with the customer's food or steakhouse, right, then I would like to pick up the steak, take it to the back, and figure out what's going on. The place I work now, the steakhouse, I worked at Bahama Breeze, and there they leave the food on the table, and they're trying to talk you into that this rice dish is really what you wanted, when we all know that this is not what you ordered or what you wanted, And so David says, that's exactly what we do at Roost Chris. Can you start next week? Well, I didn't realize for like 10 years that I didn't get the job, because when he told me he was going to call me back, that meant I didn't get the job. You know what I mean? So as part of the process later on in the selling, you have to understand that sometimes we'll call you back means no.
Yeah.
And so you have to maintain control of that. So it was a very good place to work, because I got to, work with some of the elite people in Memphis, serve them, food, and work with a good group of guys there too.
What was one of the biggest lessons you learned from that experience?
There's a lot of lessons to take from it. Hard work's one, because you work from, we get there about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I'd get off like 2 o'clock in the morning, And I had this one guy, he's a lawyer, and every time I worked in the bar area. Every time I'd work, he would come in and eat with me. And I would order for him. He had a particular drink he liked. His wife had a particular drink she liked, and I would ask her if she wants steak or chicken. I mean, it seems like you're working at Waffle House or something, right? But it was just the experience that he got. He got lobster, didn't have to think about it the day. He got the halibut tonight. Whatever you think looks good, Alan, what do you tell me? And so when he'd walk up, his name was Jeff. He'd say, I said, hey, Jeff, how's it going? He says, when are you working next week? I said, I'm working Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. What days you want? He goes, sounds good. And so I'd put him every day. And he'd come in, and him and his wife would eat every day that I would work. And it kind of gives you a perspective as a broke kid, right, that can't afford McDonald's really, that there's people out there that could eat Ruth's Chris every day of the week, And still, with the experience, it doesn't become old, right, because they're not able to get this anywhere else. So it's not so much about price as it is about the value, because the value of what he got was the experience of Ruth's Chris. A guy named Frank Sequeira, that was the general manager there, said one time, he says, people don't come to Ruth's Chris to get good steaks. They come to get perfect steaks and a perfect experience. So if we go through our journey trying to create perfect experiences versus good experiences, he said a good steak is at Waffle House at 2 o'clock in the morning, not a perfect steak. That's at Ruth's Chris. So if we take a look at these things and we learn from these Jedi masters, as you would call black belts, we find that Frank was right. You can get a good steak at 2 o'clock in the morning at a Waffle House, depending on how much you've had to drink, but you can't get a perfect steak,
And can you tell the Carpaccio story?
Yeah, so
I love this. I didn't even know how to say Carpaccio until you told me like 3 times. And I want Gio really to hear this. I mean, there's gonna be some young entrepreneurs on here, but this is, I think, it's very fascinating.
Right? Yeah, so we had a beef Carpaccio. It was so after you cut all the beef tips, they had this leftover meat, and what they would do is they would slice this beef Carpaccio really thinly and put it on a cold plate, top it with salt and pepper. Beef Carpaccio is basically raw beef. Okay, it's uncooked. They top it with salt and pepper. They put capers, red onions, a little bit of lettuce, some toast points. You build it like a bruschetta. So you put the raw meat on top of this toast point. People order well done steaks, and I'm selling them beef Carpaccio. And it's all about the persuasion of how you deliver it. If I said, hey, Gio, you want some raw meat?
Nah, I'll pass.
Yeah, but if I said, you want a beef Carpaccio, it's thinly sliced beef tenderloin topped with salt and pepper, some red onions, some capers, and some salad. You kind of build it like a bruschetta. Maybe I'll try that. I might try this. How you say it again? Oh, Carpaccio. And so that's kind of where you really understand the persuasion piece. I didn't tell you this, but we had wine challenges, right? And so one of them was a dynamite cab. I don't drink wine. Okay, I'm going to tell you. So I would ask the bartender, say, hey, what does this wine taste like? He said, oh, it's like got some apricot and some pineapple in it or whatever. And so I would take that and I'm like, what is it? How are the tannins, or how it kind of tings on your tongue or whatnot? And so, it's really light on the tannins. Okay, perfect. I was the top wine seller, okay, in the restaurant. And a lot of it was based on the fact that everybody's like, hey, what do you want to drink? And I'm like, hey, guys, we got some great wine specials today. One of them's our dynamite cabs, got apricot, some apple, really light on the tannins. Would you like that? Well, I was thinking about a Chardonnay. Is that kind of like a Chardonnay? Exactly like a Chardonnay, it's only a red. Well, that's completely different than a Chardonnay. That's almost the exact opposite. They would order it 2 or 3 bottles, right? And so I would win this wine contest just because they had a contest, you know what I mean? And you like the challenge of trying to do something, and also nothing about this. So understand that you've sold something that you know nothing about, and you beat everybody that drinks wine. Yeah. So you just have to be able to deliver it the way that they want it, and they loved it. It wasn't like you can't sell 2 bottles of wine to somebody and them not like the first bottle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They always have the opportunity to say, no, I don't like this. I would like something else. So.
That's what they say in sales also, is like your delivery matters.
Exactly.
How you deliver something, how you read what your need is, right? Or what do you think your need is, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're good in sales, you can sell pretty much anything.
That's exactly right.
That's the beauty of sales, is once you enter this sales world and closer world, is you can sell whatever it is, and you can sell yourself to get a job, but you have to know how to sell. But starting from your youth, right? Working these jobs and, you know, getting the help in school at a young age and then say, no, I'm not going to get the help, you know? I always look at successful people, right? Black belts. And it's like, you can't become a black belt without going through the process.
Sure.
Right? You can't get a sword without beating the steel and putting it in fire. Right? And so you can't become successful without being non-successful. Right? Now there's exceptions. If you're born into wealth or you're the exception, which is, all this is very rare. I believe most successful people have gone through the hardship. They've gone, I told you about the trenches, right? The place that's like you're stuck in the mud. It's cold. It's, you know, you're not getting anywhere, but you're fighting to survive. You're trying to make it happen, right? And so what do you tell these guys that are not going through that at a young age, but they expect the black belt, and black belt, whatever it is, wealth, family, you know, material, the Ferrari that we spoke about yesterday, you know, without doing that? Like, they're trying to skip this process to get to the end point without realizing they have to go through this journey of having 5 jobs at 15, you know, and doing all these different things to get by.
Sure. You know, the 5 jobs was at 18, just so we're clear. But, you know, in this process, I think that when I was washing trucks, nobody wants that job. And, you know, we have people, the youth these days, they're going into a job, they've been there for 2 months, and they want to be the manager, you know?
Yeah.
And they don't understand that working your way up to that point, and to be honest with you, these days, in my day, the 25-year guy was kind of common, right? Now it's obsolete. So you can only basically do the time and now get to that point where before you had to compete with another guy that was there for 30 years.
Yep.
Does that make sense? And so Rick, the guy that I started with, he spent 20 years with us. He spent 30 years in the Navy, you know? So for our group, I guess now is that, you know, in these pieces, I think you're learning valuable lessons. I'm going to use your example. In the white belt in jiu-jitsu, you learn different moves that you take to the black belt. And the same thing goes in these different pieces of business, you know. And I think that we've learned these valuable lessons along the way, some of them bad lessons because we messed up or cost ourselves money. But those are the reasons we're not going to cost ourselves money again, you know. And, you know, like when you get rid of somebody, they mess up and you get rid of them. Well, do you want to pay for that mistake twice, or do you want them to learn from that mistake and not do it again, you know? So it's almost okay to make a mistake as long as you can realize the fact that you've made a mistake and we're not going to do this again. No, I haven't made a mistake. I haven't made a mistake. Well, we got to make a change then, because I sure as heck don't want to pay it for the same mistake twice with you. You know, I'll be better off just going and getting somebody new. But if you've made the mistake and you can realize you made the mistake and how to stop making it again, then we've already paid for our lesson with the mistake. You know what I mean? So those are a lot of the pieces that the mistakes and the successes are almost just as valuable as the time, but it takes the time to have those mistakes. You know, don't put your hand above my head. What happens if you put your hand above your head? You get armbarred. Yeah. and you can either do it a whole bunch, or somebody like you guys say, hey, don't put your hand above my head, and because you'll get armbarred every time, you know.
Right.
You can get away with it a couple of times, but eventually it's going to come back and catch you.
Right. And I think that's very unique, you know. But again, so something that you told me the other day is like, you're like, Mo, you're weird. You're not normal, right?
Absolutely.
And you're like, this guy's weird. He's not normal. And we were talking about some successful guys. So what do you tell the guys that don't want to be normal? They want to be that weird guy. You know what I'm saying? Because the weird guy is a small number. It's a fraction of the population.
Sure. The
black belt is a fraction of the population, less than 1%, right? And we're talking about these young guys that you said it's almost obsolete that we find a 25-year guy. Yeah. So I had a private with Dr. Johnny this morning, and he was telling me about how they're doing injections. He's a surgeon, guys, that was on the show before. And he said this injection into the spine is like you need a black belt to do it.
Yeah.
And he told me that one of his guys is a black belt, yeah, right? And doing this. He's done so many. He can get in between the vertebrae and the spine and put this injection, you know? And he was talking to me, and he's like, this guy was here he's been with me since the beginning, 20 years. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm young, right? So you know more of this, but I'm only 29. So I'm like, I'm fascinated that you have a 20-year guy. I'm fascinated. I'm over here with Gio. Gio's been with me a little over 2 years, and I'm like, yes. Like 2 years, we're winning. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Not 3 months, not 6 months, not 2 years. We're winning so far. Let's keep going. Hopefully 5 years, 10 years, right? So these guys don't want to be normal. They ask for all this stuff, the dreams, not the goals, the dreams, the black belt being with the grandpa, but they're not willing to do the work for not 1 day, 3 months, 1 year, but 3 years, 8 years, 10 years, 15 years.
Sure.
You know? So what do you tell these guys? You know, hey, what's the reality to this? The truth to this?
So there's normal and abnormal. Okay, so normal means the norm or the majority. And so I would definitely say that we are abnormal or weird because of the fact that we're sure as heck not normal. We're not job hopping. We're not trying to get the easy way out. You know, we're willing to take the hard road to get to where we want to go, right? And it's not for everybody. You know, a lot of people like the easy road, and they're cool staying in their comfort zone. And you know, and there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you want. You know, there's a guy named Gary Vee, and he's all about do you. You know, don't worry about what your mom says. Don't worry about what your dad says. You know, if you want to go and you know, be in a 1-bedroom apartment with 3 friends or whatever, just go enjoy yourself. You know, and do you. But he's trying to buy the New York Jets. He couldn't afford a Nets jersey, and he wanted to go from being a immigrant, not being able to form get a jersey, to buying the team.
Yeah.
And so that guy's weird too. You know, he's abnormal for sure because he's not within the norm. And you know, I would say that anybody that's looking to get outside the area of the norm, you have to do stuff that's outside your wheelhouse or outside most people's boxes. But a lot of people aren't going to appreciate the fact of what you're doing. The Ferrari is a story of my cousin. He wanted to get a Ferrari when he became successful, and he had a certain number that was going to be his success range where he was going to buy this Ferrari. And once he went down the road of what it took to be successful, which he's way past this number, he decided that the Ferrari wasn't important to him. So sometimes your goals change, and this like item or whatever the case might be ends up not really being what you wanted. It just was the motivation to get to where you started to go. About halfway through the journey, he was like, I'm not going to get a Ferrari, bro. You know, I can tell you, you know, because I can take that same money I spend on a Ferrari and I can put it into 5 work trucks and I can make more money out of them. And so a lot of it is just you don't know what you don't know. And what seems cool, the flashy stuff and this, that, and the other. One of the most wealthy guys that I've ever been around, he wore blue jean overalls and you know, drove around this old pickup truck, and he created the only hazardous waste dump in the United States, and he founded the red box in the hospitals, the sharps container. Wow, you know, and this guy's rocking some boots and overalls, you know. He's just a normal guy, you know. He didn't want to be any different than anybody else. Now, it took a lot to get to where he was. He worked hard with what he was doing, but wow, what a fascinating guy, you know.
But wouldn't you say, you know, not you, the norm would say, but isn't that unhealthy? Like, hey, you want the Ferrari, now screw the Ferrari. What's the big goal? Because you asked me the other day we were talking it was on the phone, I believe. And you're like, what's your goal? Okay, this is my goal, 1, 2, 3. What do you think you're going to do when you reach that goal? Exactly. Are you going to stop or are you going to keep going? Like, well, damn, you know I'm going to keep going, right? So the norm is going to say that's toxic, that's unhealthy. Like, what's wrong with you? You know, what would you say to that?
So I hit one of my goals, okay? And so I was going to work, chilling, you know, as they'd say nowadays, right? Know what you say, Gio?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And, you know, my wife, she says, what are you doing? I said, well, you know, hey, we're good, you know. She says, well, why are you going to stop here? You got to keep going. So I think that a lot of it is surrounding yourself with people that are going to continue to push you, you know, and say, hey, Mo, you're being lazy. Stop eating the Cheetos, get off the couch. Same thing as you're doing with all these other folks, people who hold you accountable, right? And it's okay for your goals to change, but I think a lot of it is just having people around you, your support staff that's around saying, hey, you can go for it. You know, you told me one time that when you first started this, everybody's like, oh, don't start a gym. You're going to be, you know, you're going to this, that, and the other. Well, there's naysayers out there, okay? There's nobody that's doing better than you is going to hate on you, Okay, and that's what they say. So all these people that are saying you can't do it and you're not going to do it, they're hoping that you don't do it. That's what they're doing. You know, it's like the self-fulfilled prophecy. If you don't believe you can do it, you can't.
Right.
You know, but if you believe you can do it, you can as well. You know, and sometimes it takes somebody to show you that you can do it. You know, we had a hiring problem during COVID, and so I came out and I said, hey, we're going to hire some people. And I ended up, you know, doing a hiring blitz, showing my staff that you could bring these people in. And, hey, we ended up, you know, getting the staff that we needed to be able to fulfill the need that we needed, you know, and brought us out of a staffing crisis during COVID, you know. So, but it's all about positivity and maintaining control of, you know, Jocko Willink, I read his book, Extreme Ownership, and that's exactly what it is. You always continue having the ownership. If so-and-so didn't do X, it's my fault because I could have done Y, right? And if I'd have done Y, he might have done X. And so it's easy to pass the blame, pass the buck, but it's a lot harder to take and keep the buck, but it's also once you keep the buck, you can control the buck.
Powerful.
So what would you say, like, to those guys? Like, hey, I'm satisfied where I'm at, because this is what we're seeing. What we're seeing more and more from the younger generation, right? Is and we can go down a rabbit hole in 2020 and how they paid you to stay home and whatnot. But at the end of the day, that's your choice, right? Is you're not seeing these guys going after it. You don't see, and there's many studies on this. Like, hey, the man's handshake. We talked about this the other day. Like, what is down to 90 pounds? Yeah. Something, you know, like, is the lowest it's ever been. A man's handshake is lowest pounds per square inch, is lowest it's ever been in history, right? And testosterone levels are lowest than they've ever been, right? And the drive is probably the lowest it's ever been, right? And we're seeing this in male, right? Let's say male population. Now, what do you think is causing this? Is it because we live, you know, what does it say? It's like easy times create weak men create hard times create strong men, right? Is it because we live in easy times that's creating this problem? Or is it that our society, because the Cheetos on the couch, scrolling on an iPhone, creating this big problem?
Well, I believe that it's a great luxury to have. You know, for the folks that want to sit and play Xbox all night or whatever the case might be, I would encourage them to do that. That's what they want to do. You know, but the folks that think that they want to be great, there's no better time than today. You know what I mean? So if you put the hard work in, I believe that you have more of a chance now to create greatness. There might be some bumps along the way, don't get me wrong, but I think that there's no greater time than now to create greatness, because of the fact that the rest of the folks want to play Xbox and, you know, sit on the couch and, you know, do drugs or whatever the case might be. So there's certain folks that aren't going to want to do that. And there's nothing wrong with, you know, just going to work every day and coming home, playing with your kids and you know, taking them to basketball practice. You know, there's a lot of people that do that, and I think that's great. But there's also a lot of people that miss basketball practices and miss basketball games and birthdays and everything else to achieve these goals that they have. And it's a lot to risk. So, you know, as my kids get older and I've missed certain events in their lives, do I regret missing those events? Yeah. So I stopped doing that. I stopped missing the events. I take off, go to my kids' basketball game. You know, but I'm in a different stage in my life where you don't have to go to, you know, stay at work until 7, 8 o'clock at night or whatever the case might be, you know. And so I would encourage you to do the things that you're going to regret if you don't do, and then don't do the things that you don't regret doing. Mm-hmm. So if you want to stay in a medium-sized business and not be a worldwide business, you know, you asked me earlier before we got here, you know, what was the next step? Were we going to try to be, you know, we've never really wanted to be the largest security company in the world. We only wanted to be the best, you know, and if it's just to have a small little group of employees that do that, then, you know, we're happy that to be our goal. But we're not looking to be the largest. We're just looking to be the best at what we do.
Mm-hmm. You remind me of this thing that Dana White said earlier about, you said there's no better time with the guys, the population being the way it is. Like, if you want it, you can get it right now. You know, and he said, man, first of all, he said was everybody wants to work for themselves until they realize when you work for yourself, you don't get no 8 to 5. You're working all the time. You know what I'm saying? You're not getting the holidays. You're not getting all the luxuries that you think you're going to have working 2-hour work days. You know, and then he said, man, if you have one guy right now that has just a little bit of drive, that has a little bit of ambition, that just wants to achieve something great, he can eat all these guys up.
Sure.
You know, the majority, all these guys being the majority of the population, the normal. And I think sometimes I get it, and that's why I like talking to you, honestly, because, like, you're not the one that's telling me to pull back. For me, I have a hard time when I'm around somebody that tells me to pull the reins, like slow down, right? Because I don't want to slow down. I'm only 29, so why do I need to slow down? You know, so I think that's the biggest problem is, because I have a problem. You say it's okay, like, I guess it is at the end of the day okay. It's your dream. If you want to sit on the couch, sit on the couch. I don't think that's okay, me personally. Like, if you want to do that sometimes, it's fun, but I believe you should go after your damn dreams. You know, like I said on the episode 42, is like, think about the 8-year-old you when you had the big eyes and you thought about going to the moon. Like, if that was your dream, like, why did you let the people around you and the environment around you and the life and the world break that down and make you not believe it's possible? You know, so you just became the norm because you believed in them and you believed in whoever they are, right? And you said, screw the dream. Let me live this life. And I think that's where depression comes from. And I think that's where midlife crisis comes from. This is me.
Sure.
Right?
Well, I think that this is your job. I think that you have two things. One, if you want them to get off the couch and come in and, be part of jiu-jitsu. But if they're going to stay on the couch, buy a couch from your furniture company.
True that.
Comes with a free bag of Cheetos.
I'll sell you the couch with some potato chips. First box, potato chips on me, you know? But you got to buy the couch from me.
Exactly. You know, I think that it's, there's certain people in our lives that's what you get paid to do. You get paid to push me. Like, if I don't want to go around the mat but 3 times, your job is to go 4 times, right? But for their life, they might want to just, they might just want to go 2 times, And if they're going 2 times and yesterday they went 1 time, they're doing twice as much as they did yesterday. And if we can keep incremental growth in this deal, I'm not fighting like a black belt right now on the mat, but as long as I keep that incremental growth within, 10, 12, 20 years, whatever it ends up taking for me to learn all the different technique and moves, maybe one day you'll get there. But if we don't have incremental growth, I always say there's only one way to eat an elephant. That's one bite at a time, And so something like jiu-jitsu is an elephant. Something like taekwondo is a 3-year commitment. And in 3 years, you might have a blue belt in jiu-jitsu. So do you want something that's easy or do you want something that's hard? And you run a lot of people off because it's hard. And that's okay. It's not for everybody. It's only for the ones that want to have it hard.
Mm-hmm. We mentioned something about this early on, and you said early at the podcast, you said your environment, the people around you, right? And so when I remember it was really me fighting myself to open an academy. I was fighting a lot of people, but also I was fighting myself because I gave a word to my professor. I wrote him this 3-page thing. I was 18, and I just told him this is what's going to happen. And so I felt like I had to do it. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
I wasn't going to break my word. But when it came time to do it, like, oh, shit, what do I do now, right? But at that time when I decided, because I come from a traditional Arab household, okay? So it's like you working. From 5 years old, you're working, you know what I mean? And you're working, not just working. Like, I was taught by my dad and even my uncles, like, we don't work for nobody. You work for yourself or you work with your family. Sure. You know what I mean? And so you work in the family business. What are you talking about? Like, where are you coming up with going to open a martial arts academy, a jiu-jitsu academy? Like, are you out of your damn mind? You know what I mean? And so every single person, including my own professor, said, are you out of your mind? And so the importance of the people around you. Now, thank God, I managed to push through that, right? Even though I did want to quit for a long time, for multiple years. I wanted to quit every single day. But do you think success is possible at a high level with a certain group of people that are not really pushing you? Can you, like, some people are like, well, this is my friend, and this friend is always wanting to go out to the club on Friday, or to go get drunk, or whatever it is, to go party or go chill. Do you think it's possible to achieve that and still keep these people around you?
So my dad said that if you lie with the dogs, you're going to get fleas. That's what he used to say. And in certain senses, I think that's true. So if you show me your 5 friends, and I can show you what you're going to be in 5 years.
Yeah.
And so if you're trying to, I think mentorship is one of the greatest things that our country is losing right now. So my mom and dad were great mentors. They're hardworking. Go to work every day. My mom still goes to work every day. Like, what are you doing here? Well, I just got a bunch of work to do. And so I think that it also keeps her young. It keeps her from sitting on the couch and eating Cheetos. Buying couches from you. So for different folks, I think it's different, but I think finding a group of people or somebody, they talk about buying mentorship right now.
Right.
They're like, hey, you can hire a mentor, and just finding high performers that you're surrounding yourself with, so you get some type of urge to go and hunt like they hunt or work like they work. I think is important. I think that, thank God that you did what you did, because how many people have you actually helped that, no offense or anything, selling furniture, you're not keeping people from committing suicide.
Right.
And helping people with their health so they can play with their grandkids, and maybe help them with other issues that they're having in their lives, and giving them that outlet to be able to go and relax and spend time doing this versus something that's maybe unhealthy. It's going to the club, going out with their friends, or whatever the case might be. Oh, I can't go out tonight because I got to go to jiu-jitsu at 6 o'clock in the morning. And then I think that when you look at what your success looks like, it looks like the 40 class that we had the other day. You look at that, and there's 40 people in one adult class. There's gyms that will never have 40 people in every class that they have, much less one class have 40-something people in it, 43 with you. And they're having 2 people with the instructor. You get a lot of one. That's like private.
Yeah.
But that's not really what you're looking for. And then also the high level of people that you get to come into your gym, like Professor, Dantes that came in. Those people respect the fact of what you've built, and the folks that you have with them. How he talks to Coach Gio, you can tell that he respects the way that he, manages the gym, So I think that good things come out of great things, right? And great things come out of greater things. And I think that what y'all created there is awesome, and you're able to see the rewards from not as much monetarily as you are the lives that you're changing. One of the first things I told you is that I think, are you doing this to help people, or are you doing this to hurt people? You said,
Help people.
Help people.
Yeah.
And I said, well, why aren't you calling people? You don't like helping people?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the more people we tell about this story, the more people we can help. So I think that we have to have something that we can believe in. And I don't talk good about everything that I'm incorporated with. It's only the things that I believe in. And so people are like, hey, you're a great salesman. Well, I'm only great at selling stuff I believe in, right? Because if you really believe that this is going to help somebody, I'm way past the selling, wine at Rouge Chris. I can hand pick the things that are going to be dynamic in people's lives and make a difference. A little bit about our story. We own a security guard company called Phelps Security, and my granddad started in 1953. My mom and dad bought it in the 80s. They had like 10 guards, something like that. And right now we have like 550 guards. And through this process, it's all about helping all those families. We're feeding 550 families with our company, and helping them put dinner on the table. Jean Woodard, she passed away. She came to us and said when she first came to us, she was working 3 jobs, couldn't pay for her bills. Okay, she came to work, quit all of her other jobs, just worked for us. And every time I saw her, she said, "Come give me a hug, baby." She went to my wedding because she wanted to come to our wedding. you know? And that's the type of relationships that you can build when you do stuff to try to help other people. You don't do it for yourself anymore. I don't really need any more guards, you know what I mean? But I know that the guards need great places to work. So we don't do shabby establishments, if you will, bad apartment complexes, things of that nature. We're only doing quality work for quality people. These are our family members. You know, they're part of the Phelps family, if you will. So, you know, I think that that's important to try to make sure that you're taking care of your students, you're taking care of your flock, if you will, your employees too, you know? And I think that you do a good job of that. So.
Appreciate it. Man, always like for me, nowadays, what are you laughing about?
You're very articulate, Mr. Allen.
I always say, man, like, thank God first, right? Like, I'm a believer in God, so I don't think it's possible. It doesn't matter how Superman or Incredible Hulk I want to believe I am. Right? I think that's one thing I have to say, right? It's thank the big man upstairs, right?
Absolutely.
I don't think it would be possible without him. But also, it's like, you said people, but it's not just Coach Mo or Coach Gio. It's people like you. You know what I mean? It's the other people on the mats that create the community. Coach Gio and I cannot just be the whole community. We can't be the whole environment. Now, we contribute a lot to it, or controlling it and managing it and all of that, but it takes other people. It takes a village, you know, as we say.
Yeah, but it's through good leadership. So there's two types of leadership, the ones that lead from the front and the ones that lead from the back. And I'm wholeheartedly will say the two of y'all lead from the front, right? So you're going to be the first one in the door, as we'd say at the sheriff's office, right? Or are you the one sitting in the car waiting on us to call that all's clear, and you're going to walk through and act like the big dog,
right?
You know what I mean? And through the sheriff's office, I had some great leaders and I had some horrible ones. One, his name was Pete, and old Pete, he was one of them, man. Anything you needed, he got it for you, you know, and it was easy to follow his lead, right? Because you knew that he'd been there, he'd gone through the trenches, and I think that that's what these kids are missing these days. I say kids, but the youth, they're not willing to go through the trenches, so they're not getting the respect that they want because they haven't done what it takes to get the respect that they're wanting. They're wanting the respect because they got a piece of paper from the university, not because they went through the heat, you know? And sometimes the best way to learning how to cook is by cooking, you know, and sometimes by learning through the best. You know, some of these great chefs, they go over to overseas and, you know, study with a great chef, and that's how they become great chefs. Oh, he studied with the XYZ, you know? And that's the same thing we're doing here. If we didn't see that, you know, working hard or going through the trenches, I think that's what creates the greatness. Sometimes you get lucky. Most of the times you don't. It's through hard work. If you look at any successful business, and most of the time when they're successful, they're like, I don't know how I got here. I really don't know what I'm doing. But then when you go and you look at some of the unsuccessful businesses, he's like, hey, you gotta start text messaging people. You know, you can't just sit here and wait on this guy to call you. They're not gonna call you. Yeah. You know, you've tried this for 10 years and nobody's calling you, bro. Maybe you ought to start sending out text messages saying, would you like to get off the couch and, you know, I'll give you a free week.
Right. And I agree with you, you know, like, I think at the end of the day, you have to do it from the front. If you want to show somebody how to do it, you got to be the first one to do it.
Sure.
You know, and talking about the trenches, when I first opened the academy, I had people working, they quit. They didn't last long, right? And then I decided, you know what, I'm going to put myself in the trenches. And this is where I saw the most growth. I did it myself. Sure. But we talked about Green China this morning, right? And every day I went through the same routine. It's like I finished training, I go to Green China, quickly pick it up, eat it, phone calls, nonstop, you know? Sure. And I told him when he came in, it's like, you have to be capable of doing it before we ask somebody else of doing it. You know, like, okay, we're going to hire somebody else, but are you able to do this? Because when we hire the next guy, you think he's going to listen to you if you can't do it? You know what I mean? And so without, like you talk about the youth, is they're missing the leadership. It's because they don't want to go through the pain. You know, no pain, no gain, episode 42. That's part of the process. And so what do you look for in a leader?
Well, you know, you look for somebody that you'd want to follow, you know, when you're talking about, you know, following a leader. You know, who would you rather do it? Somebody who's been through that or somebody who hasn't? You know, when I trained some salesmen before, and I had this one guy who came in, he said, nobody's answering the phone, you know. And so I was like, okay, so go get me your list and bring it in here. And so he brings his list in, And he said, so I called the first person. I said, hey, this is Alan Phelps Security. Want to know if we could, stop by and have 10 minutes of your time to, talk to you about your security guard service. Well, how's next Thursday sound? So we set the meeting up. He says, well, that's not fair because, you're Alan Phelps, Phelps Security. You got they know who you are. So, well, would you mind if I used your name? And he goes, well, yeah, I guess so. That's fine. So that way it takes out the fact that I'm Alan. So I called this guy and purposely didn't tell him who I was with or who I was, okay? And I said, it's been raining for like 4 or 5 days. I said, called the guy up. I said, Mr. Johnson, I said, wouldn't it be a great day to be a duck? And he says, wait a minute, isn't it duck season? And I said, well, yeah, you might be right. I said, maybe an umbrella salesman. How about that? And he goes, now you got me. I said, look, I know you're busy. I'm busy. What about next Thursday? I come by and see you. I need about 5 or 10 minutes of your time. I'll come see you about 9:30. How's that sound? Can you make it 10? 10 o'clock sounds good. All right, I'll come and I'll see you there. Let's trade cell phone numbers so that way if you have something come up. He goes, well, wait a minute, who are you? I said, I'm Alan Phelps. By then, I'd already sold the meeting, right? So I just told him who it was. And he goes, man, Alan, I'm looking forward to seeing you. Sold the guy, right? And so it just takes your mindset, where this guy's mindset was, hey, nobody's going to answer the phone and take these phone calls. So sometimes it's based on just your mindset. It's not the mindset of the person answering the phone. Mm-hmm. So I'd say that if I used to hate calling people on the phone. Find that interesting, right? That's what I love doing. But the way you get comfortable at it is just doing it and having a little bit of success with it. It goes a long way. So the first time you do it, oh man, Gio, hey, I got this guy on the phone. Mr. Allen came this morning, gave me $1,000, whatever amount of money, And so once you get a couple of those people, you end up starting to get more and more and more, and you start. I call it the snowball effect. You start going with the momentum, and then the momentum kind of carries you on. But you can't get lazy. You got to keep doing your, get off the couch videos, and you got to keep calling people. So a lot of the times we get complacent because, maybe we get too busy because we got so many people in, and hey, we get short of geese or whatever the case might be. But we just got to keep that pressure. Keep sharpening your sword.
That's right. That's right.
Mm-hmm. 100%. I think I do phone calls, and it's all about your mindset. If you go in there because people pick up the phone, they're like, motherfucker, who is this? you excited. They're like, oh, this guy's excited. What's up? What do you got to tell me?
Sure.
You see a lot of success rate.
Absolutely.
And I think it's also fear of rejection. People don't like being rejected. Obviously, we're humans. It's engraved in us.
Yeah.
We just got to embrace it.
So embrace the rejection and try to get a positive out of it. So if the person says, look, I can't talk right now, I really don't want to come in, or whatever the case might be, so I tell you what, why don't you just think about it. Let me call you back in about a month. What are you going to say?
Okay,
sure.
call me back.
Yeah, sure. I'm not thinking you're going to call him back. So when you call him back in a month, go ahead and put it on your schedule. When you call this guy back in a month, you've already made one commitment. Mm-hmm. So you're probably one of the only people this month that gave him a commitment that you're going to call him back, and then lived up to that commitment. And so, hey, this is Gio over at Borders. I told you I was going to call you back in a month. You're going to come in and see us for a couple of days, a couple of classes or whatnot. Okay. This guy's a man of his word. I can deal with that. So make it into a temporary rejection and then never calling the guy back again.
And at the end of the day, what's going to be the worst thing?
No. So if you don't call the guy, what do you have?
No.
Yeah, it's already a no.
You know what I'm saying?
So we had the same thing as we did before we called the guy.
I think that's the biggest thing that people need to get over is and the truth is it's hard. We're not going to sit here and lie, right? I remember when I hated phone calls because I had a fear of rejection too, right?
Sure.
And I was like, dude, I'm Coach Mo. Like, what do you mean no? You know what I'm saying? And so I had people do that. I trained them up, paid for training, and did all that. And then when it got to the trenches, who's going to call? Okay. One day, and I remember saying, okay, I'm going to start in a couple of days. I'm busy.
Yeah.
Now, I remember sitting there in the back room, fiddling my thumb on the couch with my Cheetos in my lap. And I thought, bro, what are you doing?
Sure.
You're afraid of someone telling you no? All you have to do is just pick up the phone. And I remember it took me hours to do, a few phone calls. And then it got to the point it was 2 minutes and I got somebody in, already on a schedule.
Sure.
Next one on a schedule, right? I have this notepad that I gave him that I said, screw the computer. It was just notepadding, quick, boom, 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 And it was there's no other way. At the end of the day, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Is no. What's the worst thing that's going to happen if you go after your dreams? You know, you may not achieve it, but at least you know that you tried.
Sure.
Right? And if you're on the guy that's making the sales, or you're the guy that needs to pick up the phone, at least you know you tried. But if you don't try, you know,
you can always go back to your couch.
you can always go back.
Yeah.
You know,
So you can always go back to your comfort zone.
you can always go back to comfort, like you said at the beginning. You know, and the comfort zone, man, it's addicting, right? I don't know if addicting is the word, but it's easy. It's easy to stay in that circle, in that bubble. The hard part is taking one step out. That's just the scary thing.
I think that once you start having wins, they become way more addicting than the comfort zone, though. Because at this point in time, if you were to take my electricity from my office, my computer, or my phone, if I could only have one, I would take the phone. Because it can reach so much mass market, and nobody's using it. Everybody's sending you spam email, you know? It's like, what's the mailbox for right now at your house? For bills and spam. That's it. Nobody, grandma's not sending you a letter, you know? I haven't got an Afghan in the mail, you know? I mean, there's none of that. You know, now Amazon, on the other hand, they bring me a lot of good stuff. You know? But nobody's bringing anything in the United States Postal Service. They cut that thing off my house if they wanted to and just send it all to me by email. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're doing this, is that once you have a little bit of success with it, then you start going downhill with it. Then the ball starts rolling, you start feeling good about it. And in all reality, if you're selling something to them that is a positive thing for them, it's going to be helpful. You're not trying to hurt people. You know, even your furniture store. You need a nice table at your place. That'll make you feel good. You can have nice family dinners. You know, it's not to make you hurt each other. You know, you need a desk for your kid because that way they can do their homework. You know, so I find that, you know, good people need good services, you know, and you're trying to solve a need that they might have.
100%. Mr. Allen, I want to ask you about a little bit more mindset about like throughout your years in working, right? Obviously, you've seen people, mediocre, average people. You've seen high-performing people. But I want to ask you about the 1%. What is the 1% to you? In your own words, what are the 1%?
I would say those people that put themselves outside that comfort zone. You know, the people who want to take risks if they work or if they don't work. Also, the other piece is that they understand that they made a bad choice and they can go back. You know, it's not always, you know, dying by your sword, if you will. You know, but you know, you've seen a lot of them out there doing different things, and you can recognize them very easily that somebody is not normal. You know, one of the first times I talked to Coach Mo, I said, "Coach, what are you doing here?" You know, and then I found out that, you know, he was the owner and that he did the furniture business and this, that, and the other, and things started making sense to me. And then I had to tell him, "Hey, look, no offense or anything, because I just knew that you were special." You know, and those are the things that once you do it long enough, you can't even maybe feel, taste, or touch or tell somebody what it is. You just know this person's special, and we got to covet this person. You know, and so there's people who have it and people who don't. It can be mentored into folks that want it, but there's a certain capability that you have to have beforehand. And I would say that probably just on your side, a lot of it's probably coming from, you know, your parents. Because your brothers, I mean, they're all quality individuals too. Yeah. You know, so you can't have a whole family of quality people by accident. Right. This doesn't happen. You know, there's always a bad apple in the bush, you know, or something like that. But I got a whole bunch of quality individuals, and I've told them all. I was like, hey, you know, got a great family, and just great group of people to be around. You know.
Thank you, Ms. Allen.
So you believe anybody can become the 1%?
If you have the will to do it, but it's going to take you to do it. But it's okay not to as well. If you just want to go work your 9 to 5 and not create that sacrifice, then you're absolutely able to do that. But if you're wanting to go and sacrifice, then put yourself out there. Try to put yourself in a position that you're not comfortable in, because, like I said, I don't think anything's going to happen in your comfort zone that's going to change your life.
Yeah, now what do you say about people that do average things, right? But now they're envious and they talk smack about the 1%ers.
you're always going to have a hater, right? That somebody who's not doing as well as you, just trying to talk. I would say that let's not worry about what they have to say. If you weren't going to ask somebody for their advice, don't worry about what they have to say about you. So, just like the podcast, I'm not a podcast guy, but I respect the fact of what podcasts do. I think that, some of the new social media stuff, not a social media guy, but I do think that social media can have a big impact. It could probably make a big impact in our business that we're not utilizing it. So it's not so much that I don't appreciate it, I just don't understand it, right? And I think that sometimes that's the part of the new generation, and that's the great thing about the new generation is you have somebody that, they're a TikTok person or whatever, or a short person or whatever the case might be, and then they can take it to a new level for the new day, They talk about generational wealth, but I mean, there's like the Rockefellers and the Fords and the Walmarts, the Waltons that are going to be, not ever have to work again. The majority of us, even if you own a whole bunch of farmland or whatever, it'll be sold off and, parted out because your kids didn't know how to fish. It's the difference in teaching your kids to fish or feeding your kids fish. Once the fisherman's gone, somebody's got to fish. If not, they're just spinning the fish that you've caught, and then eventually, it's going to run out. So I'm all about teaching my daughter. She's, I said, find a position that you want that's going to be needed, okay, when you go to school. Underwater basket weaving is probably not a great degree to get it in. So she was wanting to be a volleyball business owner, right? And so I said, if you get a degree in volleyball, physical fitness, whatever you want to call it, whatever degree she gets it in, she can run a volleyball school. Would you agree? But if she gets a degree in business, she could run a volleyball school or any other business, So she ends up getting a minor in Spanish, and her major was in finance. And then she went and got an MBA from University of Memphis, and now she's going to get her CPA, and she's the controller over a fairly decent sized business right now, and she's 23, So it isn't going to take very much for you to create a great impact like it did when I was there. All you got to do is be special, and they see special, right? And so she's got, a lot of people would call her dream job as her second job out of the gates, third job. She sold cupcakes for a cupcake place, and then she worked for another company as a accountant, and then this other place. And she's creating a great impact for her business that she's in. So I would say that hard work pays off. I always tell, I coached a basketball team for a while for an NBA coach. He was a professional NBA coach. He came up to me and said, hey, he called me Coach AP. He said, Coach AP, I need you to help me coach this basketball team. I said, I don't know anything about basketball. I said, so this is not going to work out well. So I need you to mentor these kids. I don't need you to know anything about basketball. I know everything there is to know about basketball. That's what this guy tells me. I said, man, you might be a great basketball player, but you're a horrible basketball coach recruiter. I'm going to tell you that right now. And so we get over there, and these guys were cheating on their push-ups. And I had to tell these kids, I said, you're not cheating me when you cheat on your push-ups. You're only cheating you, because I don't get any better when you do push-ups, right? And so in that, the next time the guy came to class or to practice, he says, he's doing all of his push-ups. I said, I thought you didn't do push-ups. He goes, I don't cheat me, coach. And so it's all about the mindset that we teach these kids, that he's thinking he's cheating me, when in all reality he's cheating himself. I think that's a lot of what they think they're doing. They think they're getting over on somebody else, when if you do great things, it's only going to be great for you.
Right.
And then you can take somebody along the way with you. Like, hey, we can get a great place for Coach Gio to work, and make him better. And then y'all probably find somebody else, to Coach Ben, bring him. He's starting to coach. And then next thing you know, it'll be somebody else and somebody else, somebody else. I look at your coaches you have for the youth group, the younger kids. There's some great people in there showing those kids and getting good mentorship themselves of how to do something great. And then, who knows where that's going to change their lives. It might not be coaches. They might be, Army Rangers or whatever it might be, but it might impact their lives forever because of what they did at Roost Chris or the flower shop or something like that. Every one of those steps along the way in my journey made a great impact. Even the horrible ones. I mean, the horrible ones were almost better than the good ones. First place I worked was a place called Don Pablo's, and I made $8 the first night I worked there. I was like, how do you make any money to this? You know, so I made $8 in tips, you know, but it was part of the journey. You know, you knew where you didn't want to be for sure. And so when we talk about quitting, we only want to talk about quitting when it's something you're doing great and you quit it. Not when you're doing something that's horrible and you quit it. Because if I hadn't quit Don Pablo's, I probably wouldn't be here right now, right? I'd be still making well, it's bankrupt now, but, you know, if it stayed around, I'd be making $9 a day and, you know, wouldn't be able to help other people. So
100%. So what would you say is the mindset of a 1%er?
Like I said, I just think it's somebody who's going to put themselves out of the area of the norm. The people who are the 1%ers financially that aren't putting themselves out of the box or getting out of their comfort zone, got it. They inherited it, right? And then the rest of them, I mean, there's accountants, there's bankers, there's insurance salesmen, there's refrigerator salesmen, there's car salesmen, there's, you know, painters, there's plumbers, there's electricians, there's a great number of different careers you can get yourself in that you can be great at, and it's your own definition of what great is. I really believe that. It's amazing what you can be successful at, financially even, that other folks would think that, you know, nobody likes the plumber until their toilet stopped up, you know? Yeah. But you can't build a house without plumbing, you know? So every house built has a plumber that builds it. Every house is an electrician, landscapers, irrigation folks. I mean, there's a plethora of things that you can do that you can be great at and create a great service for the community.
I remember Coach Mo says, like, when you become a wizard, the money starts coming in.
That's it. As long as you pick the right path. Because if it's underwater basket weaving, you're still, if you're a great underwater basket weaver, probably not going to make a whole lot of money at it.
I agree. With the 1% comes sacrifice, right?
Exactly.
What does these sacrifices look like? You know, because everybody talks about sacrificing until it's time to sacrifice. And then it's inconvenient, or maybe I don't like that, maybe I don't like this, you know. And like you said, everybody's journey is different. It doesn't have to be, you know, you don't have to be the 1%. You know, if you want to be the number 2 guy, be the number 2 guy. It's fine, right? Now, some people are going to get offended by me saying that, but that's fine. If this is the route that you choose, if you want to play Xbox all day, that's your job, okay? That's what you want. Be my guest, okay? Now, me again, I don't believe in that. I believe we're on this earth to conquer. You know what I mean? This is me like, hey, you were put on this earth to be here for a reason, is what I believe. What is your reason? What's your why? Now go do it. Okay? I don't think we were just put here, you know, excuse my French, walk the earth, take a shit, go to sleep, and die. I don't believe we were put here for that. I believe we were put here with a purpose. And now you have to find your purpose. Okay? Maybe it's being the best dad. Maybe it's being a number 1 entrepreneur. Maybe it is being the number 1 jiu-jitsu black belt coach, right? You don't have to be a world champion, right? We talked about this in the world champion episode. Is the world champion used to be me winning the UFC. I wanted to have a title. I was young. But my title now is achieving my goals, becoming the best black belt coach I can be. Not instructor, coach. There's a difference, right? And so that's one thing I do believe. You're here for a reason, now go after it. Okay? And if you don't know what it is, keep looking until you find it. It's in there somewhere. Okay? But you have to understand that there is sacrifice. That you're going to miss the kids' basketball game. You're going to miss the weddings and the birthday parties and all this. I remember when I was young, people told me, it gave me chills. It'll give me chills now. I was young and I hung out around a lot of guys and I did this and I did that. Who didn't, right? And this one guy kept asking me, these guys kept asking me, like, hey, let's go out. Let's go out and eat. Let's go out and do this. Let's go out. And it got to a point where I had a point of realization. I was in some backwoods part of Arkansas, and I had the car open. I was selling stuff on the street. And I remember thinking, like, I was in this lowest point probably in my life. My mindset was trash. Everything was trash. And I remember looking like God, why me? I questioned. I literally started questioning. And that day I decided, like, hey, I'm going to change my life. I can't live like this no more. I was 18 years old. I cannot live like this no more. You know, I almost passed out, no food. I had to scrounge for change to go buy a nutty bar, to get me through the day. I had to sell my one pair of shoes for like $7 to get gas to get home. I didn't have nothing. And I questioned life, And I told myself, this will never happen again. I refuse to do it, But I realized then is you have to go find that purpose. You have to go after it. You can't live like this no more, And I knew that there's going to be sacrifice. So what does that sacrifice look like? What would you say that sacrifice look like? And it's okay to go through the sacrifice to achieve these things.
I watched this one guy, and so I have this, we have this membership with a thing called City Current. City Current once a month brings in these professional speakers now, these black belts, as you would call them, in business of whatever sort, Some of General Ashcroft, Oscar Robinson, Lou Holtz, bunch of big names, right? And one guy I don't remember what his name was, but he was homeless, slept under a bridge, okay? And he decided that he was going to change his life. So what he decided to do was to read 100 biographies about famous people, okay? Read these 100 biographies and dug himself out of this trench. Sometimes I think that where your trench is, mine was school, okay, how I was going to be a dependent for the rest of my life. That was the low point in my life, right? I knew I didn't want to be there. I knew I didn't want to be a dependent, okay? And so for me, that was my motivation I don't want to be here anymore. When I went to college, I said I'm going to do it on my own or I'm not, this whole 9 yards. So I think that everybody has the same capability. It's just dependent on what you do with this piece of your journey. The other piece that I think that we might be missing a little bit is finding a great team to surround yourself with. So some of those sacrifices don't have to be missed because in our situation, my dad passed away almost 9 years ago. But my mom, my brother, my sister, and myself are all there at the company helping run it together. So when I'm not there, they can pick up some of the pieces so I can go to that basketball game. When my sister's not there because she's gone to a baseball game for her son or whatnot, I can help pick up some of the pieces. Mom's not there because she had a meeting or whatever. So I think that some of it is having a Coach Gio and a Coach Ben and those types of folks around you that can help build you a great team around you, then that helps support that thing so you can go see that birthday and this, that, and the other, And then don't ever forget where you came from. Because very easily, if we stop doing all these things, start treating all of our customers bad, our students, our family, if you will, and, some of these things maybe you saw at other gyms. You went and visited another gym, and they had a big ego trip, or they were all, I hadn't been to any of these gyms, but they talk about the ones where they're drinking and smoking and everything else, and just a horrible atmosphere to be in. And so I feel sheltered, to be honest with you, in my jiu-jitsu journey. I went to Mexico, and I called Coach Gio over here, and I said, hey, Coach, I'm going to Mexico. I think I'm going to go to this big-name gym that's in Mexico. What do you think? He goes, stay in the resort. Don't get your arm broken by some Mexican over there at the at the resort, And that was great advice because I don't really know what I don't know, and you haven't seen the bad parts of the jiu-jitsu world because I'm just around a bunch of great people. And I think that everything's, sunshine and rainbows, if that makes any sense.
No, it makes sense. 100%.
And I appreciate the advice, too, from you, Coach, to make sure that you try to take care of me when I don't know to take care of myself, So
I appreciate you asking me. So what is the real cost of chasing your dreams?
Look, it could be nothing. I mean, there's very few of them, I believe, but a lot of it is missed times. If you ask some of these other people that have even been on your podcast before, they're going to say somewhat of the same things, And, time is our most precious commodity, right? You can't buy it. So no matter how much money you got, you can't buy back time. And somebody said that if in 10 years you could accumulate $20 million, you'd probably give the entire $20 million up to go back 10 years. And so to get the 10 years back, you would take and spend all the money that you needed to do that. So we have to make sure that we understand that money's not everything, that a lot of what we're trying to do is trying to create quality moments with whoever's important to us. One of the things we did this year was we, instead of going to, do Thanksgiving at mom's house or whatever, we decided to go on a little trip. And so the kids remember, going to Branson and going on the roller coaster for Thanksgiving. And I think that that's important to try to create those memories that they can remember with their family. Because you remember what you got 2 years ago for Christmas?
No.
But when you went on that trip with your uncle that time and y'all went and saw the spaceship, you don't have to do anything even really that great. Go downtown and see the bridge and have a picnic. I mean, if you aren't, so it's all about just creating those little memories that we're going to maybe remember for a lifetime.
100%. What would you say is the biggest sacrifice? Well, one of the biggest sacrifices that is relatable that you had to do, that you had to give up?
I was very lucky because, I had a buddy of mine right out of high school, 17 years old, joined the military. He was going to be in the Marine Corps as long as I knew him. Met this kid in the 7th grade. His name's Larry. I'm going to be a Marine, that's what he told me. He didn't have a bicycle because he wanted to run everywhere so that way he could do good in boot camp. I mean, this guy, he was going to be in the Marine Corps. And 17 years old, he's off to the races. Went to Japan, went overseas. He was fixing helicopters. And not spending time with his family, though. For me, I spent 7 days a week with my family for the majority of my life, 30-something years. And then for a few years there before my dad passed, I spent 5 to 7 days a week with him then. And so when he passed, everybody's like, oh my gosh, he passed so early, 62. And they were like, man, I wish you had more time with him. And I had a lot of great moments that the Lord blessed me with, because of the journey that I did take. And I could have gone to the military, I could have gone to California to go be a whatever, but I didn't. I spent time with the things that were important to me, and I didn't know it at the time, but now it was the most precious pieces that I would have given everything that I had accumulated, to be able to spend 10 more minutes with them. But the Lord blessed me with the time of spending a lot of time with him. I'd give anything to get more time with him, don't get me wrong, but I just appreciate the time that I did get.
Powerful. Time is the biggest thing, biggest commodity. And it's true because they say the most successful people, what they really want to accumulate is they want to give more time.
Sure.
And I remember my brother told me, he said, man, he was talking to me about his son. He was like, the most expensive gift we as parents can give our kids is time. And unfortunately, many of us do not set that time aside for them.
Sure. Try to do that for sure. And sometimes there's a little sacrifice there that you have to make to create a better life for them that they don't really understand per se. But just try to, make it to all those moments that are going to be the difference, And, some things you can't avoid, but, just do the things that you think they're going to be important to you.
100%. Always reminds me of this story by Tim Grover, motivational speaker. Mm-hmm. He said that he had to fly out. He was flying out all the time. And his daughter was like, Dad, do you really have to fly out? He was like, why are you always leaving? He was like, Daddy has to go to work so I can put food on the table. Mm-hmm. And she said, if I eat less, will you stay with me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a country song where the kid's asking how much, they go get their piggy bank and ask it, I got $19, how much time will that, Dad goes and people pay him for Dad to come, well, how much will $19 spend, get me or whatnot. So, I think that kids are impressionable though. I think they take off of, my daughter's amazing. She was, I think in the 5th or 6th grade, she made a bad grade on her report card. She made like a C, which, don't tell her this, but I made a lot of C's, and so, but she was a great student, she was a straight A student, so I said, what's going on with your grades? She said, well, I had volleyball and basketball and this, that, and the other, and I told her, I said, look, I understand. I'm going to take care of this. I said, next semester, if you have bad grade, I'm going to go talk to your teachers, make sure that they understand we're not playing volleyball and basketball because we don't go to school to play sports. We go to school to get an education. And she's like, well, okay. Never made another C. She made straight A's here the rest of the time. So she never said anything to me, but we're sitting in a college recruiter's office 6 years later, right? And she says, this guy's like, oh, we have college life here, and we have sorority scene, and we got the sports scene, 'cause she's a volleyball player. And she goes, well, do you have anything on education at all? Because we don't go to school for all this stuff. We go to school to get an education. And I was like, 6 years ago, man, and it stuck. So I think that even though they might not even act like they're paying attention to you, they're paying attention to you.
Yeah.
If you are talking kindly about other people, it makes them kind individuals. If you're, struggling with substance abuse, they're probably going to be struggling with substance abuse, And so my son was another reason that I knew I needed to get off the couch, because he's big into sports, big into working out. He's working out 6 days a week, and this, that, and the other, 3 hours a day. And I'm going, here I am, taking him to practice, coming back, flipping the channels, going back, picking him up from practice. And who am I here to be a role model when he's out there working like he's working, So I'm going to try to sucker him into bringing him over there and let y'all beat him up a little bit. So
you need to, man.
Yeah.
So I left off, I guess, sacrificing for your kids and stuff.
Yeah.
And I do want to ask you that. I don't have kids, okay? But I want to piggyback off kind of Gio's question. Is some people will say, well, you do need to spend time with your kids and your wife. Of course, and I agree. I don't have that. I do agree. Like, I tell people, like, I work all of what I work now, and I'm trying to work even more. So when that time comes, if I want to stay home, I can, But I saw this thing. I read this thing the other day, and it said, I would rather tell my kid that Daddy got to go to work so I can make sure I can get the things that he wants, then I can't get that for you. Or we can't afford that, or I can't take you to this trip, or you can't play baseball, And so these days what we're seeing is people are saying, well, quality time with the kids is more important. And to a degree, I guess it is. Don't get me wrong, because that time is only, you told me this a couple of weeks ago, you said that time is not going to be there. One day they're going to pass, and that's it. Your relationship with your parents is gonna be gone. Then what? So when I have kids, I know that's the same thing. It's a time thing.
Sure.
But do you think you have to do it? We're talking about from the 1%er point of mindset. We're not talking about normal people right now. We're talking about from the 1%. Alan Phelps trying to achieve this big thing, entrepreneur journey, whatever it is, that you need to sacrifice time with your kid. It's okay.
So that's where I would draw the line. Mm-hmm. So that's when I would say that I'm a blue belt. I'm not a black belt. Because I think that there's certain things that are more important than money. Mm-hmm. Your health, for once, might be more important than money, right? So would I have more money if I didn't go to jiu-jitsu class? Yeah. But my health wouldn't be as good. And what would you pay to have good health in 10 years? Would you pay the fee that the jiu-jitsu was for the 10 years to have your health back? Absolutely. It's like a no-brainer. I'll pay double that, but I'm not willing to do the work that it takes to get there, mm-hmm. right? So I think that I would encourage you to, try to find somebody to spend time with, because that's what it's all about. It's not about doing it for yourself. I can live in a cardboard box, okay? Give me a gun, no hunting season, boy, I'm good. You know what I mean? And, just year-round deer hunting, you know what I mean? Yeah. What are they going to do, kick me out of my box? You know what I mean? So, that's we don't do it for ourselves. We do it to make a better situation for our sons. Sometimes I don't really agree with the fact that they don't understand the hardships, because the reality is there's people that are selling a $9 pair of shoes so they can get gas money to get back from Arkansas, mm-hmm. So I think that sometimes we're letting our kids live a sheltered life, but sometimes you want them to live a sheltered life. You don't want them to hurt or mm-hmm. bleed like you had to be able to do what it is that you did. But I do think that some things like jiu-jitsu and other things make them stronger, so that way when they do have, and they will have, these things that come up in their life that become difficult, that they're ready for them, mm-hmm. And they're not ambushed by them. But if something comes up like that your kids can't take care of, and you feel like that they're getting ambushed, you feel like you're ready too.
Right.
And my daughter had a situation that came up, and they were trying to ambush her, and I said, well, you could take care of this, or I could,
Yeah.
You know, Dad does this all day long. This is what I do. And so you help your kids out however you can, you know. And there's no other feeling. You know, you think you like your dog. You think you like your brother. You think you like, it doesn't make any difference. I'm telling you, when you get your own kids, it's a completely different baby, you know, because it's just different. And it's really the reason why I believe it's what it will take you to the next level. So it takes a 1%er to a, you know, the next level, because then you actually have something to drive for. Like you think that you're doing it for the Ferrari we talked about before. It's not the Ferrari anymore. You know, that goal you keep chasing the goal, and then it's the grandkids, and then it's, you know, it's for a legacy for your entire family that, you know, you see your cousins and your nephews and your brothers and your sisters and stuff, but when they're your kids, you want to make sure they're okay. You know, it's not up to them to be okay. You're, you know, putting the house over their head, you know.
Right.
So.
And I was trying to get to this point. I kind of lost my train of thought earlier, honestly. But when I was talking about this guy that talked to me and trying to get me to hang out and all this, right? Mm-hmm. And I told you the point of realization happened in Arkansas, 18.
Sure.
And so I cut people off.
Sure.
Like, it was like, hey, can we hang out? No. Can we go eat? No. Like, everything was no. It was like I had to change my life, right? And so I quit, pretty much cut everybody off. Pretty much everyone, right? It was just me fighting the world and fighting myself, right? Until I became successful. And I'm going to ask you this because Ben kind of got butthurt over this. Okay. You remember this when I said you cut everybody off?
Oh, goodness, yeah.
So Ben legit got upset about this, okay? I don't mean like upset, like, oh, he's tearing things up. But he took it like, dang, like almost like I'm doing something wrong. And so I cut these people off, and this guy kind of kept his distance and kind of checked up on me. Like, he got upset, and he told me he got upset, and he told me years later also, like, hey, I really got upset with you, right? That you just dropped us cold turkey. But we weren't doing anything. It was like, hey, let's go eat, let's go hang out, let's go watch a movie. Like, what is the productive, where are we being productive, you know? He told me this like 2 years ago, so it's been like 10 years. And he told me this, and it gave me chills, right? It legit gave me chills. And he said, now it makes sense. I told you this, right? He called me, or we were hanging out one night, and he said, now it makes sense. I see what you did and why you did it, you know? And so, of course, you don't want to cut people off, ever, right? I think detachment, me and my buddy Josh Schultz talked about this. He said detachment, like as humans, is one of the hardest things. Like detaching from somebody. Like you start liking them, your emotions, like, it doesn't have to be a relationship. You know, like I love, you know, like Lil Johnny. You know, like me and him are just so cool, but guess what, bro? Like my life is a different way. I'm gonna have to split off, right? It hurts, it sucks, but I have to go after my 1%. I have to go after my black belt, right? So what do you say to this? Like, I believe this is the part. You know, you lie with the dogs, you catch fleas, right? You hang with a gimp, a cripple, you learn how to limp. You know what I'm saying? So you are who you hang out with. You are a sum of the 5 people you hang out with, okay? So what do you say when you just start cutting people off? Like, hey, you're not a benefit. Is it selfish? I guess in some aspect it is. But do you think this is part of it? Like, this has to happen. I can't keep these people around me to keep patting me on the back like, hey, Mo, good job, like, good job. You know, we talked about this. I don't want the good jobs. Yeah. Tell me what I need to do. I don't need yes men.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So what do you think about this?
So there's another saying, and that saying is it's lonely at the top. Okay? And so part of the reason that I did the sheriff's office thing was so that way I could become one of the boys. And so at the sheriff's department, daddy's not the boss. And you can go and you're just another one of the guys, you know, working the streets, right? And I think that the further up the ladder you get, the less folks are up there, okay? So the hill in Memphis, how many people have climbed the hill in Memphis? A whole bunch. How many people have climbed Mount Everest? You know what I mean? So why don't you climb Mount Everest? Well, first off, it costs you $20,000 to climb it. Okay, so that's going to knock a lot of people out because you got to have the money to be able to start climbing this thing. You know what I mean? And then you have to either carry oxygen or have somebody carry your oxygen, right? And then when you start up this thing, you can't breathe with the oxygen. Well, that's kind of what it is on this journey. And some folks will want to pat you on the back because they just want to be part of the ride. They've never had anybody go to the top of Everest. You know what I mean? I'm going to be a cameraman. You know what I mean?
Now we're talking.
I just want to be a cameraman. You know what I mean? But I don't want to go. I want a helicopter to drop me off, which a helicopter can't even fly that high, right? And so then on the other side of the deal, you have some people trying to keep you from doing this because it's going to be the differentiator that's going to make you, once you climb the mountain, and I haven't climbed the mountain, when you're a black belt and I'm still a blue belt, well, who's equal? I'm not, because you're a black belt. You know what I mean? But then you have somebody who is a Professor Dantes that's trying to show you how you climb the mountain because he's been up there 6 times. He's what they call a Sherpa. Okay, you know what a Sherpa is? The person who takes you to the top, carries all your stuff. This guy's so good at climbing the mountain. He carries your stuff with him, part of your burden, if you will. So in this, you have the Sherpas, Mr. Johns, Dr. Johnnies, that'll help carry your stuff up the mountain for you and show you the way, the mentors, if you will. You have the people who will ride your back. You have the people that'll pull you down. So the people who ride your back, your entourage, if you will, those are probably your ones that you could get away with keeping along the way. They're helpful. Hey, man, can you this, that, and the other. But there's one guy that says that in his entourage, he doesn't ask them to do anything unless he pays them, because they're just holding his bags or whatnot. So he just pays people to hold his bags, and this guy just goes around, and he is what he is. He's just part of the process. And then you have people that help build your stuff, like the Coach Geos and the Coach Bens that come in and they start helping try to build the empire with you. People with a hammer in their hand, you know what I mean? And there's very few people that'll come in and they'll help you start building your empire and being proud of you while you're doing it. So I think that in the process, you're going to lose people along the way. I've lost some people along the way in my journey, right? They didn't have the same ideas. Still talk to Larry, still talk to my buddy, John from the 7th and 8th grade. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of them along the way that we don't have any conversations with anymore. That just check off the list. But like my wife, Leanne, the one that says, hey, don't be mediocre. This is great. Let's do greater things and push you down the road and try to make you a better you. Those are your Sherpas. Those are the people that are carrying some of your stuff, help you do part of the work along the way to try to create this goal of whatever the goal is. Define what the goal is. Make sure everybody understands what the goal is. If it's, create the biggest academy in the city, create the best academy in the city, the most dynamic in whatever fashion it is, and make sure that everybody understands the mission so they can help support the mission. And if they don't help support the mission, you have to cut them for the greater cause. Sometimes we're going to have to cull some sheep to take care of the flock.
Powerful. So it's part of the journey.
Part of the journey.
Part of the journey to the 1%.
It's unfortunate though, but it is part of the journey. There's a lot of people that you talk to their deals and you hear their stories along the way. Hey, I had these partners and this, that, and the other, and I bought them all out. And very few times do you have like our deal with my family. Everybody goes and they try to drag their weight up the hill. You know what I mean? And if I need some help pulling my gear up the hill, my sister, my brother, my mom, they start tugging the gear up the hill. Hand them an oxygen bottle to go up Everest, and they're dragging it up the hill for me. And it's a cohesive team. Now, you have to mind you that my mom has literally been with me every step of the way, right? And my brother and sister, they were born in the same culture, kind of like what your family is. So part of what your deal is that they already understand before you even say anything. Hey, I look at you, give you that look, that means I need some help. You come over and you help with whatever it might be. So.
Very powerful. So this is the 1% topic that Gio talked about. And again, I correlated to the black belt. Less than 1% of people make it. But in life, you choose the black belt that you want. You know, the black belt husband, entrepreneur, grandpa, friend, whatever it is, you pick the black belt that you want. It doesn't have to be a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. And we were talking on the phone the other day, and you told me this very powerful, and no offense to anybody, right? But you said, Mo, we do need garbage men. Can you elaborate on this a little bit?
So, you know, they had the federal government shut down. Stop paying federal employees. If you became an essential worker, air traffic controller, policeman, all that stuff, you had to go to work. You didn't get paid. They back paid you. Okay. And Washington, D.C., the only people they were waiting on to come back to work were the garbage men. Nobody cared about the mail. What do you get in the mail? Bills. You know, nobody wanted their bills back, you know. So the garbage man, the garbage is piling up, and people need, you know, people to do services for them. You know, they need people to do the tasks that other folks don't want to do. You know, so we need help. You know, the only way we're going to build these great companies is through teams, and these teams take people to clean the mats, people to change the light bulbs, air conditioners break down, all these different things. So if we have a group or a team of people around us that'll help with these processes, is the only way we succeed. We can't succeed with just a great leader, because a great leader is just one person not doing anything, because he's supposed to be leading. What's he leading? A team of nothing? You know? So some of these great leaders of the time, they were great because they drove these small units into massive battles and won. How'd they do that? It was through their leadership of a bunch of other people behind them. You know, it wasn't that this person was a great warrior and killed 10,000 people by himself. So once we want to go do great things, we have to have other people to help us along the way. Without that, you know, we're just one person. And you have to try to set yourself up or put yourself in with a team that might be able to accomplish the goals that you're wanting to do. And sometimes these people aren't able to accomplish these goals. And if they're not, we have to find other teammates that will help us accomplish the goals. You know, not everybody's going to do X. You know, some people need to do Y. And it's okay for that. Sometimes we take people out of one sector and we put them into another sector, and they do a really great job where they were just mediocre in the other one, but they're dynamic in the other field because of the fact that they know what happens in this other piece. And they know that, hey, this is why we have to do this. Also, give your people the why. When you're trying to give them the what, make sure they understand why they're doing this, because sometimes that's the piece that's missing. It's like, why am I doing the level 1 like this? Well, it's because of that, you know. And so when you give them that, it helps them connect the dots, and sometimes it helps them build a better product themselves. They feel more ownership in it.
Mm-hmm. We're going to start kind of closing it out. We're going. I'm taking a lot of your time up tonight. If you were to give some advice to the youth, okay, to create a better life, right? For me, I tell them sharpen your sword, right? The lifestyle of personal development, trying to become better every day. And that will get you closer to the best version of yourself, which is going to get you closer to becoming the best black belt in whatever it is that you want to be. What would that advice be?
I would say try meaningful things. You know, you can always try something and you can go back if you don't like it. But the fact that we try things that are meaningful, that try to make ourselves better. Also invest in yourself, invest in your education. Education's cheap these days. Okay, during COVID, people weren't answering the phones, people weren't taking meetings, they wouldn't see each other. I found myself in my office going over these great businessmen and these great sales leaders and refining my sales skills because I knew it was going to be needed. By the way, sales is everybody in your organization. Everybody sells something. The person that's cleaning the bathrooms is selling the fact that we clean our bathrooms really well. The person who's working the desk, good morning, sir, how you doing? They're selling the fact that we have great ambiance in our building. So everybody in here is selling something. You have to figure out what they're selling. You got to tell them that. Okay. The other piece of this is that if they find something that they don't like, go back and pivot. Find something that you do like. You know, when I was going through school, I decided I was going to be a pilot, and then I was going to be a this, and I was going to be a that. And all those things that I decided that I didn't want to do were just as important as the things that I decided that I did want to do. Now, how I knew I did want to do it is once I started doing it, it became easy. I was like, man, I really like this. The papers that I always hated, no big deal. 10-page paper, 150-page thesis, easy, because I was doing it in that versus, whatever the other thing is. And then the other piece is make sure that whatever you're going for is marketable. They need it. Accountant was what my daughter picked because they're having a worldwide shortage in accountants right now. Old people were accountants. There's no young people in accountants. Mm-hmm. So you want to be a baller, find something that nobody's doing, and be the one that's really great at it. Pilots, these people work 10 to 15 days a month. Okay, pretty good job.
Oh yeah.
And so. They're living the life, and then on the 15 days a month that you're not working, you can go fly private jets for, some doctor or something like that, taking people to paying. So there's all kinds of different things you can do. So
very powerful, man. The lifestyle of sharpening your sword doesn't end, and I'm glad that you decided to sharpen your sword, right?
Appreciate the push. And
walking into the Jiu-Jitsu Academy, because if that never happened, then you'd never be sitting here, right?
Exactly.
I don't think we wouldn't be having this relationship and hopefully making it stronger, But already grateful for it, grateful for the knowledge that you give and the person that you are by trying to help, right? Nonstop, right? It doesn't go unnoticed.
Well, I appreciate that. You too. I think that the culture that you've grown inside your place is very dynamic, okay? And from you as the leader of the organization to all the coaches that Coach Donovan, Coach Jason, Coach Grant, Coach Gio, Coach Ben, even the kids coaches in there that I really don't spend a whole lot of time with, they're all trying to create this environment where people can be better, and I think that, I can tell now that the first couple of weeks I was there, people are being easy on you because now you see what kind of damage you could do with this thing, and having a group of teammates, partners that you can feel comfortable in a situation where they can blow your shoulder out in 3 seconds, and you're going through the dynamics to make sure, hey, if you're not a blue belt, don't do this, because you can hurt somebody, and then having the people in there that can show you, I try to get you and Coach Grant, Coach Jason, like, hey, put me in all these different moves, so that way I can feel what it feels like, but it's in a very safe environment. And I'd encourage anybody to come over to Borders and try it out. And man, what a great experience for me. I think it's changed my life for the better. And I talk to people about it all the time. Trying to get them to cross the line. And it's a lot less painful than you think it's going to be. Mm-hmm. So try it out. You'll love it.
Appreciate you, Mr. Allen. It was good having you on this episode. This is my favorite episode. I'm not just saying it because it's you. I've been trying to get you on here. I know Dr. Johnny was making fun of me. I know you're going to say that's your favorite episode, But it's a very powerful episode, and I appreciate you willing to give back, right? And a lot of people don't want to give back. And I think that's another thing that I do believe is once you have X amount of wealth or X amount of knowledge, whatever it is, that it's our job to give back. So I'm very grateful to see that and have you around to do that, right? Because, hey, so you always say, Coach, you're a black belt. Well, in some instances, I am a white belt, and sometimes you have to be so you can shut up and listen because if you're talking, you ain't going to learn nothing. So I appreciate you always giving the information and helping also the new guys that come into the academy. Right, you are a white belt, but you're still one of those guys again that's looking to help, and that says a lot about you.
I'm always glad to help, and if you need something, let me know. And like I said, I appreciate the environment, and I appreciate the venue to be able to do this. So it's been great.
Yes, sir. But guys, that's it for episode 43, Sharpen Your Sword podcast with the one and only Alan Phelps. Hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. Like always, guys, for you to become better and to reach your dreams, you need to go on this journey and make this your lifestyle of sharpening your sword, okay? It's a daily battle that you need to win to become better, okay? The whole idea is we carry two swords. Back in the day, the samurai carried two swords, okay? One was for the battlefield, the long sword, and the short sword was when they entered the huts of the houses. They couldn't pull the long sword, okay? Thankfully, we live in America these days and we don't have to swing any swords, right? But we carry two swords. One is the mind and one is the body, okay? If you go on this journey of sharpening this on a daily basis, you will become better for yourself, for your family, for your community, and for your country. So I highly encourage you to sharpen your sword. This way you can become better and possibly the black belt that you want to become in any field that you want and part of the 1%. So I hope you enjoyed this, guys. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, share with your friends. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you on the next episode of Sharpen Your Sword. Mr. Allen?
And there's merch. You can go into the bio, and we'll have a link for the merch for the Sharpen Your Sword merch.
So, guys, we talked about sales. If you don't know, Mr. Allen is a salesman. So go into the bio. The link to the merch will be there. SharpenYourSword.store. Okay? If you put AP, code AP, you get 10% off for Alan Phelps.
Oh, man.
All right? 10% off just because Alan called it out. All right? See you on the next episode of Sharpen Your Sword podcast. Peace out, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Allen.